Welcome to the MeMyddleton Show, and welcome to the year 2022. Yeah, I took a couple of weeks off after and during the winter holidays, but here on the MeMyddleton Show, we want to start off the year on all things dealing with mental health and a healthy mind. But what is the mind? Is it the brain? According to Wikipedia, the mind is a set of cognitive faculties, including consciousness, perception, thinking, judgment, and memory. It is usually defined as the faculty of an entity's thoughts and consciousness. Is the brain and the mind the same thing? Well, here on the MeMyddleton Show, we're going to explore all of that. So stay tuned. Welcome to the MeMyddleton Show, a place to encourage neo-spiritualists to laugh, love, and learn, while we virtually walk through topics of the spiritual, magical, natural, and occultic worlds. I am your host, Evina. You have now entered the MeMyddleton Show. In this episode of the MeMyddleton Show, we're going to look at important terms that will give us a closer look at not only ourselves, but everyone around us. This will also help us think about our magical processes in everyday life, like consciousness, which is the totality of experience of which a person is aware at any one moment. This is a constant shifting state, moving between current thought processes, memory, visual and oral stimuli, and physical experiences. Cognitivism is the attempt to understand the mind in terms of the information it processes and the forms in which it stores this information. Every day at every moment, we experience something different than the previous. One moment we are happy, next we're sad, next we're helpful, and the next we're selfish. The experiences we go through leads us sometimes to have to figure out what we experienced. Ever tried to process why someone reacted the way they did in a situation where you or others may react differently? You are being aware of the environment and everything that came with it. However, I must ask, how cognizant are you about the goings on in your personal life? I must also ask, how did that make you feel? Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Introspection. It means looking into one's own mind and reporting what we discover. Anytime a research participant reports how they are feeling or describes their sensory perceptions, they are demonstrating introspection. In a classic situation where the doctor asks their patient, "How are you feeling?" or asking you to describe any other sensory perception you've experienced, you usually see the patient laying on a comfortable couch or sofa while the doctor is sitting in his or her chair with a notepad and pen in hand. They are recording whatever you express to them about your sensory experience. The initial experience is the initial experience of alexithymia, or the inability to express your emotions, or where I'm from, we say, got you feeling some type of way, usually occur as the patient begins to analyze their experiences, constantly finding words and phrases to illustrate their findings. In magic, it is suggested that we evaluate what we're feeling closely before we use our magic against another person. Are we truly upset at that person for what they did? Maybe. Reactionary behavior is a usual response. However, being more proactive can assist in a better magical life. Here's what I mean. Let's say your supervisor has been in your face and on your case now for the last couple of weeks. When you arrive to your office, your supervisor gives you a disciplinary write-up regarding your lackluster job performance. In your mind, you feel like he's just picking on you. While there are two other employees that have been late more frequently than you have, yet you're the one getting written up. This infuriates you. You are sick and tired of your supervisor picking on you, and now it's time to set his behind straight. You want to plan a baneful spell against him. Is this the way to really go about this? My answer is absolutely not. Well, why not, Evina? Did you evaluate yourself a little closer? How often were you really late the past couple of weeks? How have you been behaving on the job? What have your job performances really been like? When you are constantly late, expect your supervisors to do their job just as you should be doing yours. Tardiness is usually not allowed at most jobs, although a lot of you like to think that it's okay to be late. Now, take a look at yourself and your emotions. How are you feeling? Vengeful? Or are you accepting responsibility for your actions? Still want to cast a baneful spell on him? Or was he correct in his actions? If you say that he was incorrect in his actions, then the re-evaluation of delving into magic is now paramount. If you are unable to evaluate your emotions and handle daily situations practically, then you will potentially become dangerous to yourself and others. Not a very healthy life to live. So let's look at moral development, which is the process through which children learn the difference between right and wrong. Now, the terms right and wrong are still truly subjective, meaning what's right to one person may be wrong to another person. What may be wrong to one person might be right to another person. Throughout our lives, we develop in our understanding of what we consider as right and wrong. Sometimes we do this individually, and other times we demonstrate group polarization, which is the tendency of a group of like-minded people to adopt views that are more extreme than they would be expected to adopt as individuals. This happens when the group is highly energized, dissent is suppressed, and events appear to take on a life of its own. The result of this group dynamic can affect the decision of juries and lead to extreme actions such as, mob lynchings. Another example are Facebook posts. When someone posts something, you may have strong-minded individuals that may express their opinions one way, and the other way is a hateful mob of commentators expressing their extreme disapproval of the post. Determining what is quote unquote right or wrong is solely up to the individual to discern. The thing is perception. Here's a quick story that illustrates what I mean. There's this story found in the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, 18, or I think it's like chapter 18, verses 60 through 82. And it's about a guy that wanted to follow an angel. The angel said that he could accompany him, but he couldn't question the angel's actions. If he did, the man, who was actually Moses, but in the Quran is aka Al-Qidr. If he did, the man had to part from the angel. There were three occasions where the angel did seemingly terrible things, like tore up a ship with people on it, killing a little boy, and destroying a city's wall. Moses was so emotional and could not understand why the angel did these things. The explanation the angel gave were: one, a king seized good ships by force, and those people that were on those ships were poor. So causing it to be defective ensured that the king wouldn't seize them. Number two, the boy's parents were believers and feared that the boy would overburden them by transgression and disbelief. So it was intended that their Lord should substitute for them one better than him in purity and nearer to mercy, basically giving them a better God-fearing child. And number three, the wall in the city hid treasures buried beneath it for two poverty-stricken boys to get because their father was righteous. So while Al-Kidder, or Moses, thought the angel was doing terrible things, in actuality, it was for a greater good. In the magical world, we call this mind your damn business. There is a globally recognized child psychologist by the name, or French psychologist by the name of Jean Piaget, and he believed that children initially judge good and bad by the consequences of people's actions, such as did anyone get hurt or was anything broken, which then changes to a consideration of people's intentions. Like, did they mean to hurt someone or break something? Lawrence Kohlberg went further and divided moral development into 6 stages. The 6 stages are divided into 3 different groups. So, without getting too deep into these groups and everything, I'll just briefly point out the 3 groups and the 6 stages. So, the first group is called pre conventional morality. So, children basically learn this. And this is where learning society's rights and wrongs. So the first stage is the obedience and punishment orientation. Basically, how can I avoid punishment? Or if you remember saying or heard somebody ever say, last time I did that, I got my ass beat, and I knew to never do that again. And then the second stage is called self-interest orientation. Basically, what's in it for me, or paying for benefits. And in other words, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of thing. And in the second group, you have conventional morality. This is where the section where teens tend to learn this. So in the third stage, you got interpersonal accord and conformity, where you're conforming to social norms, or the good boy or good girl attitude, trying to live up to society's expectations. The fourth stage is called authority and social order maintaining orientation. Basically, law and order morality, upholding the law. The third and final group is post conventional morality, aka principled level. This is where it's living by individuals' own ethical principles. Mostly adults tend to finally learn this part. And the fifth stage is the social contract orientation, where the majority decision and inevitable compromise. This is primarily the democratic government way of doing things. And the universal ethical principle, which is the sixth stage, the sixth and final stage, principled conscious, or the valid laws if they are grounded in justice, and to disobey unjust laws. They turn it up back to the food. So you probably heard of this guy, Sigmund Freud. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you know he's the most influential psychologist that ever lived. Saw the human psyche as being made up of 3 parts: Now, I don't want to get too deep into the famous or the infamous three parts of the human psyche, but they are as follows: the id, which seeks instant gratification, which I call the get off imp. Then you have the the super ego, which makes moral judgment, which I call the superhero, as you could tell, or the sheriff. That's another way I call it. And then you have the ego, which mediates between the two, or what I call the mediator. Um, so I did receive word that that whole thing about the three parts of the human psyche and Sigmund Freud and all of that, I heard it was challenged. So even though that whole thing was challenged, but what I wanted to really point out is like the get off imp wants to do certain things that the sheriff is basically saying, no, we shouldn't do that. You're going to get a ticket for doing that, all the wrongs that can happen for doing that. And then the ego comes in, or the mediator is saying, well, okay, how about this? Like, for example, let's say the get off imp wants to get off on eating a bunch of chocolate right now. But the sheriff is saying, no, you need to eat your dinner, you need to eat a healthy food, so you know eating this chocolate will make you fat or all these other unhealthy things, rotting your teeth out, whoop de whoop. But the mediator comes in and says, okay, how about this? Eat your dinner first, eat the healthy food first, and after your food properly digests, then you can have a little piece of chocolate as dessert. Basically what that is. Some folks will go off an impulse that if the get off imp says you want the chocolate, like, well, yeah, let's get this chocolate. I don't see why we can't. I'm grown, I'm gonna get some chocolate. But then you messed up your diet, you're rotting it off your teeth, and because you just had this wonderful idea of doing something so provocative and so out of the norm and so unhealthy, you're gonna do it anyway. But not knowing that because of what you're doing, you're gonna actually pay for it later. Instead of, just trying to have a healthy balance with it. And that's oriented to in performing magic too. Just with the example of talking about your supervisor, some folks might turn up and start going off and going in on the supervisor, but the supervisor was actually right. They were absolutely correct in reprimanding you because you're coming to work late. What's the point of having you coming to work and doing the job when you're not there to do the job, when they could actually have somebody else who's actually going to come to work on time and do the job? Why would they have you and you're holding up their productivity? That defeats the purpose of their business. It's nothing personal, it's business. So, doing the right thing, especially in the magical world. This also goes with the whole thing about do as thou wilt. People look at that and say, hey, we could do whatever we want. I mean, I'm grown, I could do what I want. That is not what that statement means, but people want to take that statement and just take off with it. Um, it's almost kind of like gun rights. In the Constitution, they was talking about the right to bear arms. There was a different time period in the 1700s versus what went on in the 20th century, and now we're in the 21st century. That's not what they were meaning, but it's almost like the game telephone. It started off one way, and as the information get passed down, it ended up getting translated into something else, transformed into something else, and then it ended up being something totally different. So I pointed out all of these things to really talk about having a healthy mind and really evaluate how we think, how we go about daily life. If you can't be practical in regular, daily, everyday life, Lord, please don't touch magic. You'll become very dangerous to yourself and other people. I wholeheartedly support having a very healthy mental state before you sit before an altar or sit before some candles or sit before whatever working you're going to do, especially when it's working against somebody. But it goes either way, either against something or for something, attracting something. if you don't have a healthy mind and you're trying to attract something, you might attract something you really don't want or really shouldn't have because you didn't really think about it all the way through. Or you thought you wanted something and you end up getting something else. Or you didn't do the magic correctly and you just completely got something completely different than what you thought you asked for. Being in a healthy state, period, before you go to an altar, whether like if you're sick or your stomach don't feel well, and I explained this in a previous episode of being in a good healthy state before you go before your altar. You don't want to go before your altar rushing. You don't want to go to your altar in a negative mental state. You don't want to go before your altar feeling ill, stomach ache, COVID-19, or whatever is going on. While you're not well, you do not want to go before the altar unless the spell is about health. You don't have to go to the altar for that. You could just do some other things, magically or otherwise, to feel better. But a healthy mental state is what's important. And I really want to start it off with the year on mind health, mental health. And the next time I come back and talk about this, I'm going to go through some other terms that deals with certain mental conditions, and talking about if people with these particular mental conditions, should they be the type of people to teach magic to. Like, there's some folks who got mental problems, they should not get into this world. They should try Jesus or try Allah. They should go get some healing in their mind so that they can go into these natural practices. But until then, think about evaluating yourself. Really sit down and think about some of these things. And then in this year here in 2022, we're also going to look at something that is a popular phrase called shadow work. We're going to look into that. We're going to really dig deep into looking at yourself, evaluating yourself, and come to terms with yourself, balancing yourself so that you can be a more healthier person and in development in your mental, physical, financial, and spiritual development. Are you new to tarot and want to learn more? Or have you been using tarot but find it difficult to understand and translate the meaning of each card and their positions? Interested in getting a formal look into the world of tarot? Now is your opportunity to get to know Tarot 101. Sign up now to discover the simplest way to internalize your tarot. Sign up now by going to www.helpbyevina.com/virtual-workshops. The first class starts January 24th, so hurry and sign up now. Wasn't that fun? Did you learn anything? Did this episode stir up any questions, comments, or concerns? Send them over to MeMyddleton@gmail.com or leave a message on our website at www.helpbyevina.com, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Check out our bonus content by becoming a patron. There are 4 different patron tiers to choose from. This is to help upgrade our equipment. So, don't miss out on exclusive episodes and wonderful rewards for your patronage. If you're on Spotify, Podbean, Google Podcast, Amazon, or any other favorite podcasting platform. Make sure you like The MeMyddleton Show and leave a comment. Tell us how much you love the show, what you don't like about it, how we can improve, and how we can be challenged. If you're listening to The MeMyddleton Show on YouTube, make sure you comment, like, click on the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to get the newest episode. And remember, proper prior planning perfectly promotes persistent productivity and proud, pristine performances. Now, get out there and perform. Until next time.